The sharp October dawn in Chicago drew an unforeseen gathering to the Riverside property auction. Among curious shoppers scanning decades of collected heirlooms, antiques dealer Sofia Martinez moved with seasoned precision. Her practiced eye swiftly distinguished valuable relics from simple junk as she maneuvered through the vast Tudor-style manor. The Williamson family had resided in this residence for nearly 100 years before the final descendant, elderly Margaret Williamson, died childless. Now, outsiders sifted through their intimate possessions, every object labeled with a price that reduced a lifetime of memories into nothing more than dollars and cents. In the mansion's wood-paneled library, Sofia stumbled upon a set of framed pictures displayed upon an antique mahogany desk. Most were conventional family portraits spanning different decades, graduation snapshots, wedding images, holiday gatherings. Yet one peculiar frame seized her focus, its decorative silver edging dulled by age. The photograph, unmistakably from the 1920s, judging by attire and photographic style, portrayed a youthful couple positioned in what seemed to be their parlor. The man wore a tailored three-piece suit with a pocket watch chain, his hair slicked neatly in the fashion of the time. The woman, clothed in a drop-waist gown typical of the flapper era, sat elegantly beside him, a faint smile curling on her lips. Between them, nestled in her arms, was an infant no older than 6 months. The baby was dressed in a flowing christening robe of fragile white lace, the kind wealthy families commissioned for rare occasions. At first sight, the portrait conveyed the fortune and joy of the roaring 20s. A thriving couple with their beloved child posed in their cozy household. The lighting was professional, indicating this was a staged portrait session rather than a casual snapshot. Yet as Sofia studied the image with greater care, something in the infant's face made her hesitate. While the parents beamed warmly at the lens, radiating pride and satisfaction, the baby's eyes carried something altogether different. Even at such a tender age, there was a striking intensity in that small face, not the vacant, innocent look typical of children, but something appearing nearly aware, nearly alarmed. Sofia bought the photograph for $25, unable to rid herself of the sense that those tiny eyes were struggling to deliver her some hidden message. Back inside her antique store in Lincoln Park, Sofia gently removed the photo from its frame to inspect it further. Her years of practice had shown her that the richest clues about vintage photographs were often concealed on the reverse side. Photographer marks, dates, names, or scribbled notes that granted essential context. The back revealed exactly what she had hoped. An embossed seal reading Henryk Kowalski Photography Studio, Chicago, Illinois, alongside a date written in flowing script, October 15, 1920. Beneath that, in separate handwriting, were 3 names, Robert, Catherine, and baby Thomas Williamson. Sofia's heartbeat quickened. She knew the Kowalski name well. Henryk Kowalski had been one of Chicago's most respected portrait photographers in the 1920s, celebrated for immortalizing the wealthy elite of the city. His photography was in great demand among collectors, but more significantly, Kowalski was renowned for his precise documentation. If his studio archives still survived, they might hold crucial details about this particular sitting. She devoted the next 2 hours digging through digital databases and historical records. What she uncovered made the photograph far more compelling. Robert Williamson had been a prosperous banker in 1920, part of Chicago's financial upper class. Catherine Williamson, née Hartford, descended from established wealth. Her relatives had earned their fortune through railroad ventures in the late 1800s. But it was information about infant Thomas that froze Sofia in her tracks. According to a Chicago Tribune obituary she located in the paper's archives, Thomas Williamson had died in November 1920, merely a month after this picture was taken. The cause was recorded as sudden infant death syndrome, though the medical grasp of SIDS in 1920 was crude at best. Sofia gazed at the image once more, her focus locked on the baby's eyes. Now that she understood Thomas would be gone within weeks of this portrait being captured, his expression appeared even more chilling. Could it be that somehow, in that mysterious manner old photographs occasionally reveal, the camera had preserved something the human eye could not? She picked up her phone to contact Dr. Elizabeth Chen, a photography scholar at Northwestern University specializing in early 20th century portraiture. If anyone could clarify the technical elements behind what she was witnessing, it would surely be Dr. Chen. "I have a 1920 Kowalski portrait that's strange," Sophia explained. "The infant's look doesn't align with the parent's mood at all. It feels almost like the child perceives something the adults cannot." "Bring it tomorrow morning," Dr. Chen replied, her tone instantly intrigued. Kowalski had been known for capturing elements other photographers overlooked. His portraits frequently revealed more than his subjects ever intended to share. Dr. Elizabeth Chen's office at Northwestern resembled a gallery of photographic heritage. Antique cameras from many eras lined the shelves, and the walls displayed examples of notable portrait work stretching across nearly 2 centuries. When Sophia arrived the next morning, Dr. Chen was already setting up her analysis instruments. "Henryk Kowalski," Dr. Chen reflected as she gently placed the photo beneath her specialized lighting. He was a fascinating character in Chicago's photography world. Came from Poland in 1910, built a reputation for portraits that captured people's inner being rather than just their outer likeness. Using her magnifying equipment, Dr. Chen inspected every nuance of the picture. The technical mastery is remarkable, even for Kowalski. Notice the depth of field, the way he preserved the fabric of the mother's dress, the delicate lace details of the baby's christening gown. Sophia watched as Dr. Chen concentrated deeply on the infant's face. What's striking about the baby's expression? Several details. First, children this small, likely 4 to 6 months old, generally show very limited facial responses. They may smile by reflex, cry, or drift asleep. But this child appears to be staring at something particular beyond the camera's frame. Dr. Chen adjusted her instruments for a sharper view. Notice the angle of his gaze. He isn't looking at his parents nor at the photographer, but towards something positioned left of the camera setup. Could it have been a sound catching his attention? Maybe, but study his expression. This isn't curiosity nor a startled reflex. If I had to label it, I'd say it resembles fatigue, perhaps even fear. Dr. Chen carried on her inspection, focusing carefully on the illumination and shading within the photograph. There's another detail here. Kowalski became renowned for natural lighting, yet in this portrait, multiple light sources exist. Observe the shadow lines. They indicate a powerful light emanating from the same side the baby's eyes are fixed upon. What type of lighting? Hard to be certain, but it doesn't align with the gentle, natural tones Kowalski usually preferred. It seems as though something bright, maybe a reflective glare or an extra lamp, was stationed in that direction during the sitting. Dr. Chen leaned back in her chair, slipping off her glasses with a gesture Sophia was beginning to recognize as meaningful. "Sophia, in my experience, when infants this small display such a precise, focused stare, they're generally reacting to something present around them. The real question is, what existed in that room that the image doesn't reveal?" "The baby passed away a month later," Sophia admitted softly. "Sudden infant death syndrome, according to the documents." Dr. Chen's demeanor grew more grave. "That alters the perspective. In 1920, SIDS was poorly understood, and countless infant deaths that may have had alternate causes were blamed on it." Pausing, she studied the photograph once more. "Considering the child's expression, I think this family warrants deeper investigation." Sophia devoted the following days to intensive research at the Chicago History Museum. The Williamson family's records reflected the image of typical wealthy Chicago society in the 1920s. Charity events, financial dealings, appearances in society columns. Yet as she pressed further into newspaper archives and civic documents, a darker picture started to surface. Robert Williamson, she learned, hadn't been merely a banker. He had engaged in numerous questionable financial ventures during 1919 and 1920, including investments later probed for fraud. Though never officially charged, his name surfaced repeatedly in relation to schemes that robbed several families of their life savings. Even more disturbing were the personal revelations she unearthed. Catherine Williamson had been hospitalized twice in 1920 for what the medical files politely described as nervous exhaustion, a frequent diagnosis for women experiencing what we'd now identify as severe depression or anxiety. But it was a small notice in the Chicago Tribune Society column from November 1920 that made Sophia's blood run cold. After the devastating loss of their infant son, Thomas, Mr. and Mrs. Robert Williamson announced their plans to leave the country indefinitely. Mrs. Williamson's doctor had advised a change of climate for the sake of her health. Sophia uncovered more leads in the Cook County property records. The Williamsons sold their residence on North Lakeshore Drive in December 1920, just 2 months after the portrait had been captured, and 1 month following baby Thomas's death. The sale was carried out quickly and discreetly, with the house fetching far less than its assessed worth. At the Chicago Public Library's genealogy archives, Sophia stumbled across something even more unsettling. Thomas Williamson had not been the couple's first child to pass away young. Catherine had given birth to a daughter, Mary, in 1918. According to the official death certificate, Mary died at only 8 months old, also attributed to sudden infant death syndrome. 2 infants, both gone before turning 1. Both losses blamed on the same mysterious condition that doctors in 1920 hardly comprehended. Sophia fixed her gaze once more on the photograph, her attention drawn to baby Thomas's anxious expression. Could this child have somehow sensed he was in danger? Her research led to one final pivotal discovery. The Williamson residence on North Lakeshore Drive still stood. It had been converted into luxury condominiums during the 1980s, yet much of the original structure remained intact. The present owner of what was once the Williamsons' unit was Dr. Amanda Foster, a pediatrician who had chosen the condo specifically for its historic value. Sophia phoned Dr. Foster, sharing her findings about the photograph and the family's tragic past. "I'd really like to see the space where this portrait was taken," Sophia explained. "Sometimes being inside the actual room can reveal clues about what was happening when the picture was made." "Of course," Dr. Foster replied, "but I should warn you, there are certain unusual things about this apartment that may interest you given your investigation." Dr. Amanda Foster's condo encompassed the entire 3rd floor of the stately limestone structure on North Lakeshore Drive. As she guided Sophia through the restored rooms, it was easy to imagine how the home appeared in 1920. Grand rooms with tall ceilings, wide windows overlooking Lake Boyarto, Michigan, the type of residence that announced its owner's wealth and social position. "The living room where your photograph was most likely taken is just through here," Dr. Foster said, leading Sophia into an elegantly decorated room with original hardwood flooring and restored crown molding. "I've tried to preserve the historic character while still updating it for modern living." Sophia drew out the photograph, holding it against the present space. Despite the modern decor and updated lighting, she could still recognize the room's underlying design, the placement of the windows, the architectural accents, even the general spot where the Williamsons had posed for their portrait. "When I purchased this place 15 years ago, I researched its history," Dr. Foster explained. "The Williamson story was part of what attracted me. In fact, as a pediatrician, I was fascinated by the mystery surrounding their children's deaths." "Mystery?" Sophia asked. Dr. Foster motioned for her to take a seat, her face turning grave. "I've witnessed thousands of infant mortality cases in my career, and while SIDS does happen, 2 instances in the same family within 2 years is extraordinarily rare. Today's medicine would have demanded a much deeper investigation." She crossed to a bookshelf and retrieved a folder. "After I moved in, I uncovered some things the former owners had left behind: documents, photographs, even personal belongings that had been stored in the basement for decades." Sophia's pulse quickened as Dr. Foster opened the folder. Inside were several pieces clearly dating to the Williamson era: household bills, private correspondence, and most astonishingly, a letter from Catherine Williamson to her sister, dated November 20th, 1920, just 5 days after baby Thomas's death. "May I?" Sophia asked, reaching for the letter. The handwriting was shaky, obviously written by someone under severe emotional strain. "Dearest Margaret, I cannot bear to remain in this house another day. Thomas is gone, just like Mary. And I know in my heart that Robert... I cannot write the words, but you understand what I fear. The doctor claims it was the same illness that took Mary, yet I have watched how Robert looks at the children when he believes no one sees. There is something cold in his eyes, something that terrifies me. I discovered a bottle of laudanum hidden in his study, far more than any person would require for occasional pain, and the night Thomas died, Robert had been alone with him for over an hour before summoning help. When I touched my baby's skin, it was so cold, Margaret, so unbearably cold. Sophia's hands shook as she finished reading. She raised her eyes to Dr. Foster, who nodded grimly. "There's more," Dr. Foster murmured. "You need to see the room that was once the nursery." She led Sophia down the hallway into what had been converted into her personal office. This space served as the nursery in 1920. During renovations, I uncovered something behind the original wallpaper that the earlier owners had never stripped away. She motioned toward a section of wall where the historic wallpaper had been carefully preserved under glass. "Look closely at the pattern." Sophia leaned in, examining the delicate floral wallpaper typical of the era. But as she studied it more carefully, she detected something strange. In several areas, the wallpaper's design was broken by faint dark smudges that resembled fingerprints. Dr. Foster confirmed it, tiny prints pressed into the wallpaper at the level where a crib likely once stood. And that's not the only thing. She directed Sophia to another section of preserved paper where the stains were different, larger, uneven, more disturbing. "These tested positive for laudanum when I had them examined out of curiosity." Sophia froze at the evidence, her thoughts spinning. "You believe Robert Williamson was drugging his children?" "I believe Robert Williamson was deliberately poisoning his children with laudanum, and Catherine suspected it, though she couldn't prove it. Laudanum was easy to obtain in 1920, prescribed for everything from headaches to sleeplessness. A banker like Robert would have had ready access, and the signs of laudanum poisoning in infants could easily be mistaken for SIDS. Dr. Foster moved to her desk and retrieved another paper. "I also uncovered this, a partial diary entry Catherine apparently hid beneath a loose floorboard." The entry, written in Catherine's increasingly frantic script, revealed a terrifying picture. October 10th, 1920. "Thomas has seemed so weak lately, sleeping far more than a healthy baby should. When I brought it up to Robert, he grew furious, accusing me of being an overprotective mother, just as I was with Mary. But I observe him when he assumes I'm not watching. I've seen him give Thomas what he calls medicine, yet the baby always drifts drowsy afterward. I discovered the same small brown bottle in Robert's study again, the very kind present when Mary was ill. He insists it's for his back pain, but I've never seen him swallow any. And the bottles bear marks, tiny scratches suggesting someone measuring doses. Tonight, I intend to watch more carefully. I must protect Thomas, even if it means..." The entry stopped abruptly, the writing breaking off as though Catherine had been interrupted. Sophia turned back to the photograph, realizing at last why baby Thomas's eyes looked so weary. He had been staring at his father during the portrait session. "That would be my conclusion," Dr. Foster agreed. "Infants that age are extraordinarily perceptive to threat. If Robert Williamson had been steadily poisoning Thomas, the child would have come to connect his father's presence with illness, with pain. That expression in the portrait isn't chance, it's a baby's instinctive recognition of danger." With this grim revelation, Sophia plunged back into her research with renewed urgency. She needed to track down Henryk Kowalski's studio files, hoping they contained further evidence about the portrait session that could validate their suspicions. After numerous phone calls and emails, she learned Kowalski's archives had been transferred to the Chicago Photography Archives at Columbia College following his death in 1965. The archivist, Dr. Marcus Webb, agreed to meet with Sophia to review any materials connected to the Williamson portrait. "Kowalski was remarkably meticulous in his record-keeping," Dr. Webb explained as they descended into the climate-controlled basement where the archives rested. He noted not only the technical details of every sitting, but frequently added personal impressions about his subjects. They uncovered the 1920 ledger, and Dr. Webb gently turned to the October entries. There, in Kowalski's exact handwriting, appeared the record for October 15, 1920. Mr. and Mrs. Robert Williamson with infant son Thomas. Commissioned formal family portrait for Christmas cards. Payment $50 advanced. Technical remarks. Natural light from eastern windows supplemented by reflector. Mrs. Williamson highly uneasy during session, constantly checking on baby. Mr. Williamson restless, wanted session concluded swiftly. Personal notes, odd family atmosphere. Baby seemed distressed whenever father drew near. Mrs. W, very protective, refused to let husband hold infant during poses. Child outwardly healthy but unnaturally watchful, startled, cautious for age. Suggested reschedule once infant calmer, but Mr. W insisted to continue. Final remark. During last exposures, child grew unsettled when father stepped closer for group pose. Expression recorded shows infant's evident fear. Mrs. W requested I exclude specific poses from finished set. A chill coursed through Sophia's body. Even the photographer had recognized the strange family tension and baby Thomas's dread of his father. But there was still more. Dr. Webb uncovered a folder of correspondence tied to the Williamson session. Inside lay a letter from Catherine Williamson to Kowalski, dated November 25, 1920, 10 days after Thomas's death. Dear Mr. Kowalski, I write to request all photographs and negatives from our October sitting. My husband asked me to reclaim them following our child's recent passing, yet I must ask a personal favor. If you observed anything unusual during our sitting, anything troubling regarding my family's safety, please record it and keep such notes safe. I fear a time may arrive when those observations prove crucial. I enclose payment for an additional set of prints to remain in your private files. Kindly do not inform my husband. Sincerely, Mrs. Catherine Williamson. P.S. My baby's eyes in that last image. You captured something vital. Please preserve it. Sophia understood she might be holding potential proof of murders a century old. Despite the years gone by, she felt a moral obligation to properly preserve her findings weighed heavily. She reached out to Detective Mariah Santos of the Chicago Police Department's Cold Case Division, explaining she had uncovered evidence connected to suspicious infant deaths from 1920. Detective Santos, a veteran investigator with 15 years of service, grew curious enough to meet Sophia at the antique shop. As Sophia presented the evidence, the photo, Catherine's letters, Dr. Foster's revelations, and Kowalski's records, Detective Santos listened with mounting focus. Clearly, we cannot prosecute a crime from 1920, Santos remarked, but from an investigative perspective this is captivating. The pattern you've traced matches what we now recognize about family annihilators, individuals who methodically kill relatives, often for financial motives. She studied the photograph intently. Infanticide during that period was seldom examined deeply, especially when the offender was a wealthy, respected citizen, and laudanum poisoning would have been nearly impossible to identify with 1920s medical expertise. Detective Santos opened her laptop, scanning through modern databases. Let me see what can be uncovered about Robert Williamson's later life. After minutes of research, she located records that made the story even darker. Robert Williamson remarried in 1925 to a wealthy widow, Helen Morrison. She had 2 young children from her earlier marriage, a son and a daughter. Sophia's heart dropped, anticipating the outcome. Both children perished within 2 years of the wedding. The boy in 1926, age 6, listed as pneumonia. The girl in 1927, age 4, said to be wasting sickness. Helen Morrison Williamson herself died in 1928, reportedly from sorrow and failing health. He did it again, Sophia whispered. It certainly seems that way. By 1930, Robert Williamson had inherited significant fortune from his second wife and moved to California, where he lived in comfort until his death in 1954. Never married again. No additional children. Detective Santos snapped her laptop shut. What you've unearthed is proof of a serial murderer who exploited his social standing and the medical shortcomings of his time to kill multiple family members, likely for wealth. Robert Williamson destroyed his own children, his stepchildren, and probably hastened his wife's death through psychological torment. She glanced once more at the photograph, fixating on baby Thomas's terrified look. This child sensed the danger. Somehow the lens captured his awareness of a threat the adults nearby either refused to recognize or deliberately ignored. As Sophia's revelation circulated across academic and historical communities, she received an unexpected phone call from Dr. Patricia Williamson, a retired psychiatrist in Portland, Oregon. Dr. Williamson revealed she was the great-great-niece of Catherine Williamson and had been investigating her ancestry for years. "I've been searching for what became of Catherine after she left Chicago in 1920, she said. "Your research may finally have provided the answers I've sought." She scheduled a meeting when Dr. Williamson flew into Chicago the next week. She arrived carrying a bundle of family papers that had been safeguarded within Catherine's sister's lineage, keepsakes Catherine had mailed to her sister Margaret across the years. The most vital find was Catherine's full diary, which she had apparently sent to Margaret in fragments between 1920 and 1925. The complete diary revealed a chilling story of a woman who gradually recognized her husband was a killer, yet was imprisoned by the social and legal boundaries of her time. The entry dated October 15, 1920, the day of the family portrait, was especially telling. "Today, we sat for our photograph. I insisted Thomas be included, though Robert resisted. He claimed the baby would ruin the formal tone of the portrait, but I longed for a record of our family while Thomas is still alive. My worries for his health have grown lately. During the sitting, I studied Robert's face as he looked at Thomas. The same look I recall when Mary was ill, a cold calculation, as though he were analyzing a puzzle instead of gazing at his own child." The photographer, Mr. Roar Kowalski, was gentle and patient. He seemed to sense that Thomas grew distressed whenever Robert drew near. When I requested several poses of just Thomas and me, Robert grew irritated, but Mr. Kowalski defended my wish. "I pray Thomas will gain strength. Yet I fear that Robert views our children as barriers to something he desires more." I uncovered papers in his study about life insurance policies and financial documents I cannot interpret. Sometimes I catch him casting at me the same cold gaze he gives the children. The diary carried on into the weeks after Thomas's death, charting Catherine's growing conviction that Robert had murdered their boy. November 20th, 1920. "I accused Robert tonight about the laudanum. He erupted in rage, declaring I was suffering another of my nervous fits, but I showed him the bottle I discovered, the one with the residue, sickly sweet in smell. He swore it was an old remedy left over from when the doctor treated my headaches, but I know he lies. I cannot remain in this home. I cannot pretend to mourn beside the man who slaughtered my babies. Tomorrow I will take what money I can reach and flee to Margaret. Robert may keep his fortune and his reputation. I only wish to be free of him before he deems me too an obstacle." 6 months after Sophia's initial find, the Williamson mystery had grown into a topic of academic research and historical intrigue. The portrait that once appeared so harmless at first glance was now hailed as one of the most crucial pieces of criminal evidence from the early 20th century. Dr. Chen hosted a symposium at Northwestern University titled "Photography as Historical Evidence." The case of the 1920 Williamson portrait. Scholars nationwide gathered to study it. They revealed how new investigative methods could uncover truths long buried inside historical photographs. Sophia stood before a gathering of scholars, criminologists, and photography specialists. The enlarged portrait loomed behind her. Baby Thomas's frightened eyes seemed to oversee the room, finally receiving the acknowledgement and compassion denied to him in life. This image proves that truth always finds a way to endure, even when the powerful attempt to conceal it, Sophia concluded her talk. Baby Thomas Williamson never spoke, never testified, never defended himself, but his gaze told a story that lasted more than 100 years, waiting for recognition. Among the crowd, Dr. Patricia Williamson brushed away tears. Once the lecture ended, she approached Sophia with one last piece of Catherine's history at her. Hereen lived until 1965, she whispered. She never married again, never had other children. She dedicated her life to working with groups that aided abused women and children, though she never publicly revealed her own ordeal. She held on to that photograph of Thomas until death, along with every piece of evidence against Robert. Why hadn't she gone to authorities? Sophia questioned. In those days, a woman's testimony against a respected banker accusing him of murdering his own children would never be believed. Yet she documented it all, praying that one day someone would understand. Dr. Patricia passed Sophia a final envelope, Catherine's last letter, written before her passing. It was to be opened only if the truth about her children was uncovered. With shaking hands, Sophia opened it and read Catherine's last words. To whoever learns this truth, my children were killed by their father, Robert Williamson, and I was helpless to stop him. I kept this secret for 45 years, hoping that justice would someday prevail. If you are reading this, Thomas's eyes have finally spoken. Please remember he was cherished, that he was pure, and that his short life mattered. Remember that evil can wear a respectable face, but truth survives even the most powerful falsehoods. Thank you for seeing what I once saw in that picture. Thank you for hearing my baby's silent testimony. May this knowledge protect other children from the pain mine endured. As the symposium closed and guests departed, Sophia stayed seated, staring at the portrait. Baby Thomas's eyes, no longer puzzling, had finally revealed their story. The image that once depicted a joyful family now stood as proof of truth's endurance and the duty to believe those who cannot speak. The portrait was placed permanently in the Chicago History Museum, displayed with the full account of the Williamson tragedy. Visitors often remarked on the child's unusual look, and now at last they could grasp what those eyes had tried to express all along.